Hello, I'm Mark Sumner, host of the Challenge Chat podcast show, and today I have the pleasure of Rachel Cowell, the recruitment manager of Softcat, in the house. How are we doing, Rachel?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Good, thanks for coming on. So, Rachel, obviously you're going to be a great person to ask. Not only are you in my industry as well, recruitment, which I love, but you're also working for Softcat. So the first question I wanted to kick off is, the Women's Festival's been going a couple of years now, I think, 2 or 3 years. And I think it's great that we're sort of promoting and celebrating the success of women in our industry. But do you think it actually brings, and I don't want to be hard when I say this, but do you actually think it brings any value to people outside the industry or other women that aren't maybe up for awards in the industry itself?
Yeah, I think, from my perspective, and maybe I'm seeing it as, female in tech, but also as a recruiter, I think, and from working actually with a lot of, and we can talk about this later, a lot of internal communities, we're calling them inside Softcat now, that are, supporting women in business. We've got our BAME network, family network, etc. I think from, hearing what they discuss and about their confidence that is quite often knocked within the industry because it's so male dominated, I think the fact that women are getting recognised and there's the opportunity to go for awards, that's something to aspire to. And I think for, as I say, from a recruitment perspective, it's great to see that, we're trying to encourage more females into technology. And so having these celebrations, for me, is a positive thing. It creates ambition. It allows for people to see themselves in maybe a space or an industry they never would have thought of before. Because generally my perception when I was young was stuffy, this is horrendous, but a stuffy IT man, looking at this as when computers probably were just very new, but it was just like trying to help me with setting up passwords and using Google for the first time or whatever it might be. So I think there's that perception when you are young, you're going through school, that it can be quite male dominated, could be quite stuffy. So actually to put females on a platform and to allow other females to see that, I think it should only benefit increasing diversity, I suppose.
Do you use that when you're recruiting? I.e., do you actually use that you've got these awards or these celebrations? Obviously, I know that there's the Channel Awards and Softcat have won many awards in that. But do you actually use the women's awards as well as a part of your recruitment policy?
So we are, I suppose, far more active on our social media. So, we've bolstered our marketing team and support. So more so actually advertising the fact that, we've got a lady called Corolla who is sort of head of program management and taken on a more senior role more recently due to some internal moves. But actually for her, she won CRN Manager of the Year award. Wow. So, we are really, really passionate about trying to celebrate success like that and making sure that we're not, that we give people the opportunity, I suppose, to, put their name out there and make a big thing of it. And for her, we want to celebrate that success. We've got a bunch of women in our organisation, including myself, that have been shortlisted for this year's CRN Awards, Women in Tech Awards. So, we are absolutely, putting that out there and making sure that other females in the industry realise that we do see that as success and we do, think that's important. So, it's more on social media. I am in the middle of building out probably a more dedicated element to our careers site that actually hosts more diversity content now that we've built those internal groups and we've got a bit more to talk about. So,
okay, great. So you've already mentioned there your online presence. So you and Softcat are sort of pretty active in sort of the importance of being more women in technology. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to understand what your views are around, does it really matter? I.e., nursing or air hostess or whatever it is are dominated by one or the other, male or female. So we're not the only sector that's sort of dominated by one sex. Do you think it's really important that, if it's heavily biased by men, is it that important that we make it more diverse and we actually make it more women in tech? Does it really matter?
Yeah, interesting point. But I think it does, and to be honest, it's not all about just females, right? It's about, you know, all unrepresented groups. So it's, for us as an organisation, it's about, you know, not just saying we need more females because we feel it's the right thing to do. We actually believe it's really important. You know, the McKinsey report coming out to say that you're going to be more, you know, better off, I suppose, as an organisation if you do look at, you know, encouraging diversity. But actually, you know, I've experienced, say, for example, in my team, I've increased the balance of more males actually in my team because, you know, HR recruitment tends to be, from an internal perspective, more female heavy. So I've actually increased the number of males in my team, and actually with that, and actually with people with different backgrounds, level of experience, years of experience in their roles, we've got such a diverse team now, and we're operating so much more effectively, challenging each other in the right ways, being able to say, I would never have looked at it like that, or is that right? You know, and actually being really open and honest with how we can move the business forward, how we can, you know, make the right changes. And by having that openness and that ability to challenge each other is massively important to grow. So I do think it's important. I do think it gives the company a good advantage because, yeah, diversity, different perspectives just means that you innovate constantly. So
yeah, okay, great. So as an industry, tech only has 16.9% women in the industry itself. As a female yourself, what do you think is putting off young females coming into the industry? Now, I know Softcat are bucking the trend with that, but in general, 16.9% women in tech, what's putting them off?
Yeah, so I think, and it's probably going back to what I said earlier about, you know, when you're at school and maybe the perception.
Yeah.
I think businesses are doing more to work at grassroots level, and we definitely are, going into schools, colleges, making them, I suppose, understand and not fear technology. So actually getting to them at an age prior to them actually thinking about GCSEs or A-levels, so that they can actually start thinking about, actually, what avenue do I need to go down in terms of a career? And, you know, it's making it a bit more, I suppose, give them an understanding of what it means. Because, to be honest, when I joined, I didn't really know what an IT reseller did. I wasn't put off by technology. I'd worked at O2 previously, so I was in telecoms. But for me, it was more actually the opportunity and the role and the culture that I found really valuable. And I think that's the benefit that Softcat have, is actually our culture is so vibrant. We are all about the people. So it's not just about the technology, that is important. I think probably companies need to do more of selling the environment and selling the organization to those individuals, rather than, you know, just leaving it to, these are the products that we sell and there we go, and people aren't that interested. So I think it's important. And that's probably the battle, is they don't really understand what the industry is, what that means to them. And, you know, there's a fear it is male dominated, and do they have a place here?
Yeah. Now, you've already said it, you know, I was sort of delighted to see that, you know, Softcat buck the trend in that, so I think it's around sort of 30% women, which, you know, fantastic. Kudos to you with that. You know, what do you put that down to, and, you know, that success down to, and how have you made it happen? Because there'll be a lot of companies out there who would love to emulate that and think, do you know what, if we could, you know, a lot of companies can't even get to 10, 20%, let alone 30%. So what would you put that success down to, Rachel?
You know, it's not magic. I think that, you know, the more our business grows, you know, the more salespeople that we hire, inevitably the more business operations and support teams that you need to hire. And actually you do find you get more interest from females for those operational, maybe administrative, sales support positions. So actually that's probably helped in terms of our overall number increasing. And we don't like to lose talent. I don't think anyone does. But we're really, really conscious of actually saying that if someone isn't enjoying sales, or if somebody doesn't feel that one role suits them, that we're supportive in their journey within the business. So we make sure that actually, are they going to be more, you know, comfortable? Are they going to be able to succeed better in this type of role? So actually it's about how we can encourage talent to think maybe more broadly in their careers, and not just be, you know, if I can't do this role, I've got to leave. Helped with retaining maybe more females in that space. I mean, we can talk about as well what, we've got ambitions to increase our female percentage of females within our organisation, as well as trying to make sure that we're improving our diversity overall. And there's lots of things that we're trying to do right now to encourage that. And the biggest thing for me is actually the job design itself. If you've got the mindset that actually you just want to hire the same backfill, let's say John left the business or decided to leave the business, and we're just going to backfill John with another John because that's all, that's what we used to, that's all we've done. And actually, we don't really know anything else. But actually, let's just challenge that in the first place and say, but actually, is what John did important to the strategy of the organisation now? But also, how can we flex the role? How can we think differently? Like, can we, for example, get somebody on a fixed term contract or for 3 to 6 months temporary contract, to bridge the gap of experience whilst we train this individual up that's maybe more junior or has less experience, but will be the permanent hire in the end that will allow us to grow our diversity. And it's just thinking more creatively about how you design your role, how you think about flexible working, remote working, flexible hours, those types of things, and having that as part of a discussion from our recruiter's perspective with the hiring manager, but also the HR business partner, also ensuring that that's on the table when we're thinking about succession planning, when we're thinking about how we offer, internal mobility across the business. It's making sure those discussions are happening as early, at the earliest point as possible.
Is that quite hard to educate your hiring manager to do that? I.e., so you've got a hiring manager who's in whatever department, sales. He says, "Oh, Rachel, I want another John," and you come up and say, "No, we're going to have another Jane," or whoever it is, someone slightly different. Do you get much pushback from the management to sort of say, "Actually, no, I want another John"? Actually, open.
Yeah, we do, but only if I'm honest. A lot of our managers are very open-minded and actually very supportive of this. So I think for them, as long as we're able to decide on what is the best route for the organisation, and it's not just let's do it because it will equal this result. It's actually, will it benefit their team? Will it benefit the business by trying to think creatively and differently? And as long as it does, their buy-in is there, because why would you suggest an option that possibly is going to, make the team not perform or whatever? You need to make sure that you're offering a solution that's going to work. And I had that discussion very recently, actually, and we talked through all the different options. And the hiring manager said, "Well, actually, that won't work for this reason." And I said, "Well, it might not work for your part of the business, and that's absolutely fine because of your business needs and the urgency of your requirement. But actually, would you be open to this?" And he said, "Oh, I could flex on this." And actually, there was some negotiation and compromise there. So it didn't feel like it was, what sometimes can happen, HR's battle with the business. It's not us imposing this. It's actually about a collaboration and making sure that it fits.
Do you know, an interesting point there, Rachel, because, and I want to get your recruitment perspective on it, because I've spoken to a few ladies on this series, and a couple of them mentioned around job specs, i.e., the language of the job spec is actually putting women off. It could be, hunter or tenacious or aggressive language maybe in the job specs, and women are looking at it thinking, "Oh, I want more partnership, teams, collaboration, all that sort of stuff." So have you consciously had to think about your job specs, or and also do you see that as potentially a reason it would put off females coming into certain roles when they look at a job spec and they think, "Do you know what, I don't want to do that job anyway"? Yeah,
absolutely. And we're currently exploring partnerships with a number of different providers around the job design part, so it can actually suggest maybe you can do this job with more flexible hours or whatever it might be, but it also looks at the language, not only the language being more masculine or feminine, but also looking at how you structure the advert. So it just goes back to basic copywriting, right? You want to make it attractive to the audience, as well as not putting people off from a certain background or whatever it might be. So we do use decoder to look at our adverts, to making sure that it's a free tool, and there's loads of tools out there that you can use to basically upload your job spec, and it gives you suggestions on whether it's feminine or masculine language. And there's some research that has shown that actually if a female was to look at an advert and they met maybe less than 80% of the requirements, that they're likely to probably not apply. Whereas men, they only feel like they have to maybe tick 40% of the criteria.
Men apply for anything, don't they? Let's be honest. Every time I get an application from a man, they could be working at Sainsbury's as a yogurt salesman, and they're applying for the head of sales at Computer Centre or Softcat or wherever it is. You know, they just apply for anything. So I've heard that as well, which is ironic. During the interview process, and I'm not sure what your interview process is, Rachel, but during the interview process, is there anything that you're trying to do to ensure more women are inclined to sort of put themselves forward or go through the interview process, or at least give an opportunity to present themselves? Because again, I've heard mixed reports on when they hear about maybe more sales jobs, they're hearing actually they've got to do X or Y, and sometimes the interview process puts women actually coming into the industry because of that.
Yeah. We do. So I think the biggest thing that we're trying to do is actually more balanced interview panels. Okay. So in the majority of pockets of our organisation, within sales probably in particular, it's still quite male dominated. So for us to actually, get enough interviewers to provide balanced interview panels. So what I mean by that is, if you've got two people, one's a male, one's a female, or if it's three, it could be two of whatever. But as long as there's representation there of, the unrepresented group, for us, it allows the candidate to see themselves being in that organisation. So I already know there's females in this type of job or this type of department, so I'm not going to be the first one. I'm not going to be the first one that experiences what life is like in an all-male company. But also it means that they can actually feel more comfortable joining the organisation, and that, that's an aspiration for me. This person's now a deputy team leader or a team leader interviewing me, and they're a female. But there are benefits, that, the company can have from it as well. And for me, it's ensuring that, there are challenging conversations. And as an example, I overheard in the London office, there was a male and a female interviewing this candidate. And the walls were very, very thin pre the refurbishment in the meeting rooms, but I did hear that them challenging each other, and they both had different opinions in terms of whether this candidate was right or not. But I loved the fact that they could have this this debate, and actually potentially, if it was two guys that maybe had a similar background, that had been there a similar length of time, would they have discussed the things that this lady was? And for me, it's about having that ability to have different perspectives in that interview decision is massively important. And it might come to, it might end up having a different outcome, which is a positive one, because obviously then, you're opening up the doors to people that maybe would have been shut out before.
Yeah, so, absolutely. So, Rachel, your advice to the channel: how can more IT companies hire women? Maybe there's a company out there that's got 10 or 12 men. They want to hire women, but what are they doing wrong? What can they do to attract more women into their companies?
So I think the things that I've seen that we've done that have been or are helping us on that on that road are creating comfortable spaces and internal networks within your organisation for people to feel that they can air their views. We had recently, as part of the BAME network, they hosted a call called Let's Talk About Race. And actually, the majority of the organisation joined that call, and it was a very open conversation between them all about, the difficulties that they face, how the business can support them. But I think for the business to support that is massive, and to actually allow them the platform to open and to feel comfortable discussing it. So I think internal networks, and Anushka, who's sort of our head of D&I, as well as many other things. She's got such a long title. But she's spearheaded. She's been a massively important part of that process and getting those networks together, and what we call now Softcat communities is all of them together. So there's that piece, but also, you know, all the way through the recruitment process, just think about, you know, what do people, you know, want to see, want to feel, want to, you know, how can they like relate to you as an organization? And that could be through your attraction materials, you know, your branding. It could be through our connections we're making when we're talking to candidates on the phone, all the way through interview process, offer experience. Everything needs to have that consideration of how we could be more inclusive as an organization. And making sure that we're on top of it, and we're aware of anything new that comes out, or, you know, a new piece of data or research that actually might help to inform our ways of working or our processes. I think it's not just about recruiting, it's about retaining as well. It's making sure that we're giving, you know, our people the right experiences when they're here and continue to stay here. So
and moving on to that point, really, Rachel, you know, there's one thing getting women into technology, that's the first challenge, but then it's keeping them in there and retaining them. So what can employers proactively do to retain female talent, or another question almost is, what are Softcat doing to retain female talent in your company?
So I think one more recent project that's being undertaken at the moment is, how do we support females returning back from maternity leave, especially in sales? There's always the issue of, you know, how are we going to divvy up their accounts? How are we going to split the commission? What's it going to happen, you know, to those people that have been looked after for a year? When they return, are they going to come back on a part-time basis? So many questions and so many worries and fears from people that, you know, from women that do go on maternity leave, for example. So I can't disclose what the plan is yet, but they have identified this as being something that we need to work on, and is a project that they're being active with. And also just in terms of making sure that, you know, as part of succession planning, an organisation is really, really proactive in developing their people, so that, you know, when it comes to advertising a vacancy for a more senior position, you very much have, you know, the right people ready to go, but investing in, you know, your female talent to make sure that they're part of that shortlist. And they're to be considered. And you know, it's the biggest piece is, it takes time, it takes effort. If you're not willing to put effort and time, you won't get any results, you won't get there. So you need, and it takes a long time. So it's the patience, but it's just continuing to drive, you know, those changes is going to be massively important to making it happen. So
now Rachel, talking about effort, you know, most IT channel firms would be absolutely ecstatic if they even got anywhere near 30%. Now, I've heard a rumor that you're trying to even increase that again. So you're trying to get it up even more, but a conscious effort. So tell me about that, because it seems like a monumental task to sort of continue to sort of, you know, as I said, most people will be absolutely over the moon to get 30%, but you're under conscious effort to even push that even higher. So tell me about how you're actually even approaching that.
I suppose it's similar to what I've said. It's about us tailoring and, I suppose, tweaking all of our parts of our recruitment process to making sure that you know, we're being effective and inclusive. So making sure that we're collating the right data, so we can actually look at, you know, where are we attracting the most females, or the most BAME candidates, or whatever it might be, or where we aren't, you know, looking at it and saying, okay, well, this is never going to change then if we're not going to actually do anything about it. So it's actually being able to focus and highlight on the ones that we know we're struggling with in terms of that diverse mix of candidates that apply for the role. But also it's the balanced interview panels. It's all of that stuff that we're doing as part of the interview the recruitment process. But it's about continuing that message in the organisation. And I think it's important, you know, with Nush's role, she's driving that. And she can really rely, and it's another really, really important point, really rely on the networks to do a lot of the work for her. So in terms of, you know, if there's messaging that needs to go out, it's the community, it's the networks that actually push those messages out and actually are really proactive on projects as their side projects. That's not part of their job. But I think businesses have, you know, they have obviously tight budgets, and quite often they don't really know how much time or money to invest in diversity, or somebody that does that as part of their job. But actually, it's how can you utilize the people within your organization to try and do a lot of that activity as well. And that's where we're seeing a lot of these efforts pay dividends in the end, because there are so many more people aware in the organization of what's going on and joining these networks, so it can only get better.
Yeah, fantastic. It sounds really good. It sounds really good. So Rachel, I almost want two views here, Softcat's view and your own view. Do you think there is enough that's being done to help women get into the industry in general, and if not, what would you recommend?
I think more is being done than previously. I think that a lot more companies are starting to take I suppose more of a proactive approach around diversity. I mean, my advice anyway would be do it for the right reasons. Don't just do it to tick a box. Do it for the right reasons, and make sure you're putting things in place for the right reasons as well. And it's that you're wanting to diversify your business to help with innovation and growth. It's not about just we want more females because that's what I think we need to do.
I see a lot. Sorry to interrupt, Rachel, but I see a lot of that. I see a lot of companies. Softcat, I think it's great. You've obviously cracked it, and you're moving the dial, which is really, really good. But I do see a lot of companies saying, "Oh, let's just put this on Twitter to say we're a supporter of women in tech. Or let's do this to say this," but they don't really care about it. It's just a tick in a box exercise. So, what's your opinion on that? Do you think it's almost like, if you don't really think you should do it, just don't do it, just don't say about it, or do you think they should be raising awareness, even if they're just sort of like half really not being passionate about it, or a bit disingenuous, to be honest with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think to promote the message anyway, and to make sure that people understand it's important to have a diverse culture. That isn't a negative to have publicity around it. I think it's just, be genuine as, through your material, through the images that you put on your website, through what you're saying on the adverts, because you'll be found out pretty soon, obviously, if you're actually not a diverse organisation, or when people get there, they don't experience what you're selling. So you very much need to live and breathe what you're saying that you do. And I think that's what Softcat have done. They have, we've been slower, I suppose, in the sense of not wanting to just go out there and be like, we're this really diverse organisation, because we're still on that path. We're still on that journey to become, the diverse organisation, but we're getting better, and, we're doing what we need to do to get to that point. So I think it's about, being genuine with your attempts and your initiatives, and making sure that, that comes through when they join the organisation. Otherwise, you'll get bad reviews on Glassdoor. People will know about and
they're really diverse, and yet they go in there and it's suddenly not diverse. Yeah, no, absolutely. And the last question for you, Rachel, sort of double-edged question, really. How did you get into the tech sector? And what advice would you give to a female looking or considering it as an industry they should go into?
Yeah, I got into the tech sector more because I think I mentioned earlier the opportunity of a management position. It was sort of the right level for the role that I was looking for my next step. And if I'm honest, I hadn't heard about Softcat at that point.
Really?
That was 2.5 years ago, yeah. So it wasn't the tech sector that I was interested in. But what I would say is, don't be put off by it. Don't be put off that, oh, I've never heard about this company, or, I don't really understand what they do. Do your research. But as I say, look into the culture of the organisation. And I think, for young females that are looking at, can I even do this? Can I even go into a career of tech? I would say just understand the reasons why you're thinking that. And actually, if it's just a confidence thing and you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I'll belong there, as I say, the research you do and speaking to people from that organisation should put your mind at rest. And I suppose in our organisation, for the majority of roles, especially at entry level, you don't need prior tech experience to be able to do it. So very much, an organisation that develops and grows its people. So I think it's just, and that's where, by the way, we're trying to be more clear on our adverts as to what is the must-haves versus the desirables. And you'll very rarely see we need anyone with a tech background, because we actually do really well from people with different perspectives, again, from different industries, bringing that in. So
yeah. Rachel, I have got one more question, and I'm not trying to prize you away from Softcat or anything like that, but I'm interested. Now you're in the tech sector. Say hypothetically you left Softcat, would you stay in the industry? Would you go and seek out a job in recruitment in tech, or would you think, actually, do you know what, I'd consider other industries anyway?
Interesting question. I don't know, to be honest, and it's not I would actively seek a role probably in another tech organization, right. Because the industry for me, it's the culture, so it's it's less about the industry for me, and I think because I'm in recruitment, it is such a broad generalist role in the sense of, you have a recruitment department in every organization, every industry. So, I could apply my skills to any type of industry that I go into. But I do enjoy the buzz. I do enjoy the fast-paced atmosphere that comes with a tech organization and a growing organization. So I think growth is important, and that's what Softcat offers. It's grown massively, even the 2.5 years I've been here. So I think up and coming, growing organizations, which can quite often be in the tech space anyway, would be interesting to try and see.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point you said there about the culture, because I think if a lot of companies in the channel, if they could emulate Softcat's culture, then they'd obviously love it. But so it's not, because a lot of people, I think for women as well, it's not just about being a coder or having a computer science degree with tech. You can go into anything: recruitment, marketing, operations, sales, whatever it is, help desk. So no, I think you made some great points there. Rachel, look, thanks so much for your time. The listeners will love that show. That's a wrap. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us and listening to another episode of our Channel Chat podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard and are listening on iTunes, please could you give us a review and subscribe in order to get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Otherwise, as always, we release an episode every Thursday at midday, so hopefully you can join us then.